This is Dr. David Stein. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. I'm a professor of criminal justice and psychology. I've been a professor for over 35 years. I've also been in private practice, also for about 35 years. I want to talk a little bit about the Maryanne case, and maybe some of the remarks that I have to make will help the listener, the viewer, understand a little bit more about how to look at this case in an educated manner. Basically, the drug that the child was on was Risperdal. The mother had been complaining that the child was becoming increasingly violent. The symptom that is associated with a drug like Risperdal is called akesthesia. Akesthesia occurs in about 10%, maybe 15% of the people taking this type of drug. The symptoms include irritability, nervousness, agitation, inability to sit still, a lot of tension. Some people say it makes the individual paranoid. It makes them extremely irritable and prone to become more violent, either towards themselves or to other people. So there is a risk of danger. It doesn't make them paranoid, but it just makes them so irritable they're likely to act out on some dangerous feelings. The other risk in these drugs, called the atypical antipsychotics, which were supposed to be safer than the original antipsychotics, is that they produce irreversible brain damage in anywhere between 60 to 80% of the people that take these drugs. In adults, these symptoms take anywhere between 20 years to maybe 25 years to appear. In children, they appear in 3 to 4 years. When they appear, it's irreversible brain damage that cannot be made to go away. The only way the symptoms are masked is by increasing the dosage, which produces more brain and nerve damage. An additional idea is regarding the diagnosis of the girl. Psychologists and psychiatrists generally do not agree on diagnosis. The Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is the so-called cornerstone or Bible of psychiatry and psychology, doctors can only agree on diagnosis with a correlation of about 0.41. This is actually stated in one of the earlier editions of the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manuals. The difficulty with a correlation of 0.41, it means that in a percentage way, in a percentage expression, it's called the coefficient of determination. It means only 16% of the times can the doctors agree in diagnosis. That's at the highest end of agreeing. So diagnosing the child is problematic in that the doctors can't agree on diagnoses. It doesn't matter what category diagnosis you're talking about. An additional problem is psychological testing is generally not valid and unreliable. Educational part of a test battery are fairly useful. The personality tests are the part that are generally unreliable and invalid, meaning they don't predict behavior. They're extraordinarily inaccurate. They're more inaccurate than they are accurate, and they're extremely dangerous. So the diagnosis of the child would be extremely questionable. The mother was protecting the child, claiming the child was becoming increasingly violent. The court was saying that the mother was refusing medically necessary treatment. But if you look at it in the way that I'm discussing with you, she's refusing to put the child in harm's way by the medical treatments, in this case psychiatric treatments, which are the risky psychiatric drugs. We'll leave the viewer with the thought the word toxic. These drugs are all toxic. I've taught psychopharmacology for years. Toxic means in a state of poisonous. Intoxication means being in a state of poisonous, and that's what we were doing to this child. Thank you for your time. God bless, and I hope you review future cases with a little bit of a more educated eye from now on.